My name is Mark Thompson. I'll be your host today. We're going to go tour the what used to be the old ConAgra frozen food factory. So it's a great place for a brewery. We're going to learn a little bit about beer, how beer is made, and kind of see the heritage of what Crozet was known for, which is this old building that made a lot of frozen food back in the day. So it's a great spot for a brewery. We're going to talk a lot about how we make beer. We've got these two different types of barley. One is very dark. I'm going to tell you about making beers a lot like making coffee. We got these two different types of coffee roast, if you will, except they're barley seeds. We're going to grind these seeds up, and this is the beginning of our beer. So just like you make coffee when you have like a Maxwell House, this was a light roast, and a Starbucks double espresso roast, which is this chocolate malt here. We blend all these different types of malts together. So for our stout beer, we'll use a lot of this dark malt, and for our pale ale, we'll use a lot of this lighter style malt. But you guys can come look into the mill room here. We have these big sacks of this grain. We usually have, depending on the recipe that we do, we have about 1,000 pounds of this barley, and we grind it up. And we grind it up into a coarse meal. Oftentimes, beer is called liquid bread. It's the same ingredients that a baker would use, except the baker uses a lot less water, and unfortunately, the baker boils off the alcohol because he puts it in an oven. But the reason the beer rises is because of fermentation. So we have water, ground up cereal grain, and yeast, and we add a lot more water to it. So we don't try to grind our grain like a baker would. When the baker makes his product, he grinds that grain into a flour, and the flour is what we all know as bread. We take that same kind of cereal grain, but we grind it into a coarse meal, more like a breakfast cereal would be, or like oatmeal would be. So we take all that, we mix and mash it. We have a grinder in there. There's two big stainless steel wheels. You guys have probably seen the old millstones out there. We got stainless steel wheels that spin around. The barley falls through it, and it grinds that barley, and it gets held in a hopper in there. And then when we're ready to start brewing, we'll start dragging that grain up and out and into the first cooking vessel. So we are in the hot side. This is where we cook all the beer. These are steam-fired kettles, and we talked a little bit about the coffee analogy. We take that milled barley and those pipes right there that run out of that mill room, and we bring them into this first vessel. That first vessel has paddles in there. We mix the grain and the water, and we mix it into like what you consider to be breakfast cereal, the oatmeal consistency. It's a big slurry of grain and water. So we mix it in that first vessel for about 20 minutes, and then we transfer all of that barley and water into the second vessel. The second vessel has screens on the bottom of it and a spray ball on the top of it, a lot like your coffee filter would be. So we take all that barley and water over to that second vessel, and then we start spraying more water on top of it, and we start extracting the barley juice, and we pump that barley juice back into the first vessel. So if you took the second one and stacked it on top of the first one, you would have a gigantic coffee maker. That's how we start making beer. We take the barley, we grind it up, we take it over to the second vessel, we spray water on top of it, and we start extracting the sugar water, the barley juice, out of that until we have filled up our coffee pot. Once we've filled that coffee pot, we add hops to that vessel. We boil it for an hour and a half. During that boiling process, we add hops. Hops are the spice of beer. They give beer bitterness, they give it aroma and flavor. And it's an interesting story that back in the day, brewers used to use all kinds of different things to flavor their beer. They'd use tree bark and pine cones and all kinds of things. There was one culture, the Danes had a wild plant called the hop plant. They started flavoring their beer with that one plant. Their beer lasted longer, tasted better. Hops have an antibacterial effect. They keep beer from spoiling. So as things evolve, the hop plant is now the universal spice of beer. But before that, brewers used anything and everything that they did locally to spice their beer. We add the hops in the kettle. It boils for an hour and a half. If we make a German-style beer, we'll use German variety hops. We make an American-style beer, we use American-style hops. For our stinky, very hoppy India Pale Ale, we might add a trash bag full of hops. For our lager, Jomo, we might just add a little pinch full of hops. So it depends on the beer we're making, the style that we're making. We have different types of hops that we add. They all get added to the kettle. We boil it for that hour and a half, 50 to 200,000 cases. Cleaning is a very, very good question. Cleaning is very important to us. Over here, we clean this system, the brewing system, once a week. So we'll brew 2 batches of amber on Monday, brew again on Tuesday, Wednesday, and then on Friday we clean this entire system to start over on Monday. Over here on the hot side, we have the ultimate sanitizer ever. What is that? That's heat. We cook for 90 minutes at 212 degrees. That kills everything. Over there on that side, the cold side, we clean, rinse, and sanitize every single time that we use it. So over here, we rinse out, spray out all these kettles between every single batch, and then once a week, we clean them all. But on this side, the heat of the kettle kills all the bacteria. On that side, we need to make sure we're a lot more vigilant on the cold side as we are on the hot. We're in the fermentation cellar. We've got a big pot of coffee down there, right? Big pot of barley juice. We pump all that barley juice down in the fermentation cellar. We fill up one of these tanks. We add yeast, and the yeast then are the magic ingredient that convert the sugar into ethanol and carbon dioxide. So we fill up this tank with amber. Each of these tanks has a different style of beer in it. We add the yeast. You can see number 4 down here is bubbling away, and it will bubble like that. It'll actively ferment for about a week to 2, maybe 3 weeks. And then after 2 or 3 weeks of actually fermenting, we'll cold condition those tanks. We have glycol cold water solution. We bring that tank down to just above freezing, and we hold it there for about 3 weeks to 4 weeks. So it takes anywhere from like 4 to 6 weeks to make a batch of beer. It takes a day to cook it, and about 4 to 6 weeks to actually where it's ready to be bottled or kegged. It sits in these tanks for a couple of time period. It ferments for a week or 2, and we cold condition it. We take it out of these tanks and we run it through a filter. The filter is that big bulbous thing behind you. It basically has cloudy beer, the lub, unfiltered beer going into it, and clear beer coming out of it. All of that beer is taken through the filter and to the 2 tanks behind you that are number 9 and number 10, which are our bright beer or finished beer tanks. So when we fill up those 2 tanks, Monday morning, the first thing our cellar master will do is he'll filter 2 of these tanks into those 2 bottling tanks, and we'll start kegging and bottling those tanks, and then we'll start filling them up again. We'll usually fill about 3 different tanks full of those beers. We do about 150 barrels or 300 kegs a week is our annual production cycle. As you guys become more and more psyched about Starr Hill, that 3 will go to 4 to 4 to 5, and eventually we'll be doing this every single day of the week. So now we started way back there at the mill room. We took grain and we ground it up, and we've moved it all the way down here to the bottling line. This bottling line, the process starts behind, right there, behind you, some of you guys. We put the glass on the bottling line. The glass will come down the line, and it'll go around to the first device here, which is a twist rinser. It's a big car wash. The bottles go in, get flipped upside down, they get rinsed out and washed off. They come out of the twist rinser, they come down this line. All the beer is coming down out of the fermentation cellar right on this pipe right here, and it's feeding this big bottle filler. The bottles come in, they get sequenced into that filler. The bottles get evacuated twice with carbon dioxide because air is a bad thing for us right now. Then the bottles get filled, they get crowned, they come off the filler and crowner, and they start heading down behind you, behind that way, into the labeler. As you can imagine, it's very hard to put a paper label on a cold and wet bottle, so labeling is very tricky for us. The bottles get labeled, and then from the labeler they go down to the pack station where they get packed into boxes, taped up, palletized, and sent off to a store near you.